January 2021, the cost of living has increased by 17.9%. That's why gas, groceries, electricity, and even rent have exploded in price. In fact, American families spent $940 more this January than they did 4 years ago. Month after month, you and your family have been paying this hidden tax. You can't get that money back, but what you can do is stop your losses today. How? By diversifying your savings into a gold IRA from my friends at the Birch Gold Group. Gold is a tangible asset with proven history. It has been used for thousands of years to preserve wealth during chaotic times. To see how gold IRAs work, click the link or button below to get a free info kit on gold IRAs from Birch Gold. This information is free with no strings attached or obligation. And Birch Gold is the only gold company I trust. So click the link or the button below and take action so you can have peace of mind over your future. Hey guys, Donald Trump Jr. here. Let me ask you, does inflation feel worse than what we're being told? That's because the official inflation rate doesn't tell the whole story. Since January 2021, the cost of living has increased by 17.9%. That's why gas, groceries, electricity, and even rent have exploded in price. In fact, American families spent $940 more this January than they did 4 years ago. Month after month, you and your family have been paying this hidden tax. You can't get that money back, but what you can do is stop your losses today. How? By diversifying your savings into a gold IRA from my friends at the Birch Gold Group. Gold is a tangible asset with proven history. It has been used for thousands of years to preserve wealth during chaotic times. To see how gold IRAs work, click the link or button below to get a free info kit on gold IRAs from Birch Gold. This information is free with no strings attached or obligation. And Birch Gold is the only gold company I trust. So click the link or the button below and take action so you can have peace of mind over your future.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli and Ross Galloway here. Ross, you're not a Fed?
Not a Fed, Mr. Baradelli. By the way, I forgot to mention this earlier. A mutual friend of ours told me that you actually played the drums on that intro. Is that true?
I wish. I am nowhere near that good. but you know who says they're not a Fed normally? Feds. So now I'm a little suspicious.
I don't know if the peeps could see that. It does sound like something a Fed would say.
It certainly does. Oh, listen, this is going to be a fun one. I'm glad we're back doing this. This has been a whole blast. I want to thank everybody first. The response to the show has been really, really good out there. So if you would please subscribe wherever you're watching, whether it be on YouTube, whether it be on Rumble, if you want to follow me on X, where this is broadcasting as well, I'd really appreciate all of that. And I'm sure that Ross would too, because I'm cutting him in on the action. But we got a lot to talk about. There is so much news. It's every weekend is just, I've never seen a cycle like this, Ross. Have you?
No, this has actually been kind of wild, man. Like a few minutes before we even came on, Biden just gave his concession speech live up from the supposedly Biden, supposedly from the White House, supposedly live. Basically gave his concession speech.
Isn't it amazing how much we distrust everything now? Completely crazy. It is certainly over for Joe Biden. Uh, let's get into this because I got a little bit of a conspiracy theory on this, and I think you'll follow me on this. I don't think Joe Biden really wanted to get out of this race. I think Joe Biden wanted to write his own ending. Instead, the Democrats wrote it for him. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think that the tell is if anything he was saying were genuine, why not resign and make Kamala the president now? Right? Like if everything he's saying is true, that it's time for new leadership and she's the one, she's the Neo of the Democratic Party, then give it to her now. Like wouldn't it be a much more powerful race for her if she was the incumbent with all the, right now she's still not the nominee. She supposedly has these delegates locked up, right? But going into the I don't know if we're still calling it a convention or a coronation next month for the Democrats, as the sitting president, I think would be beneficial to her. So I don't believe anything Joe Biden says, or the media for that matter. Like I'm glad you brought this topic up first. We kind of hit on it last week, Gene, right? Like what was the media saying literally a week ago? That Joe Scarborough was saying that this is the sharpest version of Joe Biden he's ever seen.
Oh,
I just watched him today. He's a corpse. The guy could barely string two words together on a teleprompter.
Well, there are some news reports out there from anonymous sources, Ross, that are looking at what happened to Joe Biden. And, well, let's just get into the story. This is from the New York Post, that bastion of democracy, right? Dem-elites accused of steamrolling democracy to oust Biden anoint Kamala Harris. Quote, invalidated the votes. This is what we've been saying for a while here. The Democrat Party doesn't care about democracy. They don't care about being a Democrat. Democratic elites are being accused of steamrolling democracy by forcing President Biden to end his campaign at the 11th hour as part of a sinister plot to swap the octogenarian commander-in-chief at the top of the ticket for Veep Kamala Harris without voter approval. That's a pretty strong opening statement. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And the octogenarian thing, I love that, right? Because if you notice, the Democrats are pivoting hard right now to say that President Trump is now the oldest person to run for president in the history of the country, right? They weren't saying that a few weeks ago. We weren't even saying that a few weeks ago.
Oh,
it was not his age, but it wasn't his age.
Yeah, it's the most disingenuous thing ever. It's never been about age. It's been about cognitive decline. It's been about who's sharp up here. It's not about, if this was about age, okay, you can compare how sprightly Donald Trump has been compared to Joe Biden. I mean, a corpse is more sprightly than Joe Biden. But look at the face on the screen here. They can't even get a photo of her that's not laughing. It's absolutely disgusting. But I want to get into a lot of the story here. What they knew, while the general public was awakened to Biden's disturbing decline during the January 27th debate, I don't agree with that. I think those of us who've been paying attention the past 3.5 years, we all knew about that. Democratic insiders had said they spotted the signs a full 12 days before during Hollywood star George Clooney's glitzy June 15th fundraiser. Oh, look at Hollywood, all happy to be around Joe. Following the event that pulled in a record-setting $30 million, Democratic elites knew more than they let on, critics say. Jon Favreau, an Obama White House speechwriter who attended the event, indicated that insiders saw the writing on the wall at the Hollywood event. Quote, I said to my wife, either he'll do great at the debate or we'll realize he was just tired tonight, or he'll perform like this and then the whole country will be talking about it, he told the Washington Post. Another unnamed donor, this is where I love the unnamed stuff, told the Washington Post that Biden's volume and speed were turned way down to an alarming level. Quote, we were worried that if we told the truth, that President Biden was stiff, slow, and dare we say it, fragile, that we risked losing their support for the president, said the donor. It was painful to be deceptive. Now we realize we were not alone withholding what we experienced. I'm floored by this, by the way, to hear Democrat donors openly admitting that they knew that Joe Biden had feeble mind, feeble body that we talk about on the show ad nauseum, but they chose to hide it. That's shocking.
I'm not shocked. I mean, is it possible, Gene, that a percentage of the population did not know that Joe Biden had lost it? Like, going into 2020, we knew Joe Biden lost it, right? So, first of all, the Democrats do not respect their voters, right? I was listening to Joe Scarborough the other day. For some reason, I do this. And, he made a comment along the lines of, the Republicans are saying that Kamala Harris is a DEI vice president. The majority of people don't even know what DEI means. See, that's their mindset, and that's what the left depends upon, right? They depend on their voters being clueless and ignorant. I guarantee you the majority of people on our side of the political spectrum know exactly what DEI means. So is it possible that a good chunk, maybe a plurality of Democratic voters did not know that Joe Biden was basically a cadaver since before 2020? Yeah, I guess it's possible. But you're right, like the donors, the elites, his cabinet, the vice president, they knew. They damn sure knew. And they kept it a secret because they do not respect their voters. They don't respect them so much that they can care less about the primary. Rush Limbaugh used to say this all the time. He used to say the Democrats view elections as, in their way. They would do away with elections if they could. They will. They tried to get President Trump off the ballot. They got Joe Biden off the ballot. They're going to insert Kamala Harris without a single primary vote ever, delegate ever being elected to vote for her in a democratic process. And lastly, I'll just close with this on this topic is, they say that there is a process. Most of the pundits on TV from the left say there's an orderly process. There's no coronation. Well, what's the process exactly? What process will get Kamala Harris on the ticket for president of the United States? Were the voters involved at all in this process? Any voters?
No. And you know what? Kamala Harris has the distinction of being a nominee who has never, in two different presidential primary election cycles, to have never earned a single damn delegate. In 2020, she got 0 delegates. She dropped out before Iowa. And this year, she's a designee, not a nominee. But I think a more interesting question, a more delicious question for me, Ross, is who swung the hatchet? Who is the one that brought the hammer down on Joe Biden? Was it Kamala Harris? Was it Nancy Pelosi? Was it Chuck Schumer? Was it Barack Obama? This article sort of lends some credence to the idea that it was President Obama, but he didn't want his fingerprints on it. Sealing Biden's fate, Biden's unsettling performance at the fundraiser inspired George Clooney's blistering op-ed that was published 4 weeks later, lighting the fuse of the left's calls for the president to reconsider his election bid. If you keep going down through it, okay, here's a quote from the op-ed. It's devastating to say it, but the Joe Biden I was with 3 weeks ago at the fundraiser was not the Joe big effing deal Biden of 2010. He wasn't even the Joe Biden of 2020, and that was a pretty bad Joe Biden back then too. He was the same man we all witnessed at the debate. Billionaire businessman Barry Diller credits Clooney's editorial in particular with sealing Biden's fate. So people are talking about George Clooney being the hatchet man. But Clooney wasn't alone in sidelining Biden. Former President Barack Obama made clear, largely through his silence, that he thought Biden should step aside after being forced to help him off stage at the Clooney-hosted fundraiser. Here's another anonymous quote. I love the anonymous stuff coming out of Democrats. I love it when they break ranks. Quote, Obama wrote Joe Biden's epitaph at the exact same time he assumed the body of George Clooney to facilitate the op-ed that started the drip, drip, drip. What do you think about that quote there, Ross?
Yeah, I think, people are talking about the Clooneys of the world and the Nancy Pelosi's. Like, I honestly don't think that they're smart enough to do anything like this. Obama runs the Democratic Party, right? the two dynasties that are still alive in the Democratic world are the Clintons and the Obamas. And most people that I know of could give two S's less
Yeah,
about
you're good. You're good.
About what the Clintons think, right? Obama controls the party still, obviously. And I just want to go back a step. Do you really believe Barack Obama picked Joe Biden as his running mate because Joe Biden was the man? No, he didn't want to pick an old white guy to be on the Joe Biden was old back then, right? He picked Joe Biden because the powers that be at the time in DEI and its affirmative action infancy stage were saying that you needed an old white guy with statesmanship to balance out the ticket for a young black guy, right? Because the Democratic Party is really racist. I mean, let's be for real, really racist, right? So Obama never wanted that guy. Obama never liked that guy. How do I know this? When 2016 rolled around, Joe Biden thought about running for president. Joe Biden wanted to run for president. He can say his son died and that's why he didn't run, right? Okay, he wanted to run for president. The clock, Father Time was ticking back then. He wanted it. 2020, he got it. If you remember, Obama did not endorse Joe Biden in 2020. He wanted to let the process play out, right? So the Obamas and the Bidens are not friends. So I don't believe Pelosi and Clooney and the media and his cabinet, none of them had anything to do with this overthrow of Joe Biden. If anybody had anything to do with it, it was Barack Hussein Obama and that crew.
Well, and I think that, to your point, Biden was foisted upon Obama in 2008 and 2012 because they didn't know if the suburban vote would come out for him the way that it did in those elections. And they thought that Scranton Joe, Pennsylvania being the swing state that it is, would be helpful. And ultimately, I think it was a good decision, but it's not like they gave Joe a lot of responsibility when he was, a vice president. Didn't Obama appoint him in charge of finding the cure for cancer or something like that? Do you remember that nonsense? Like Joe's going to save humanity?
He was also the lead for Ukraine. How's that working out?
Oh, it's working out phenomenally. Well, for his pocketbook, at least. Or
they've lost territory under both Obama and Biden's administrations. And they made a lot of money.
Absolutely. Well, listen, I think that the word not only got out about the fixing of democracy by the Democratic Party in that article that we saw from the New York Post. I think when word first got out about Joe Biden stepping down and withdrawing from the race, everyone was thinking that he was being forced out. And I want to go to this clip. We played it on Monday's show of RFK Jr. reacting to what happened to Joe Biden and also then talking with Jesse Waters about his reaction further later on in the night. Check out this clip. Let's talk about this for a moment. And by the way, guys, I see that there's some chat messages coming in. So if you're out there, I want to say shout out to Eli here for saying good evening. Appreciate you being around. Just to let you guys know, if you are coming in the chats, the chat messages are only coming in from YouTube for some reason. So if you want to talk to us, get on YouTube. I'll be monitoring Rumble on my phone, which might be why you're seeing me look down a lot. But as we're talking about all this, let's go to that video from RFK Jr.
To govern effectively. The reaction of the DNC to that obvious condition was to hide it from the American public and to use their power over the Democratic Party nomination process to make sure that nobody could compete with President Biden in a way that would expose his deficiencies. And as a result, we are where we are today, which is in a period of crisis.
What do you think about that? React to that, Ross.
Yeah, and I think the Democrats missed a golden opportunity. To be honest with you, Gene, the one worry that I had was that they would give RFK Jr. a serious look and let his name be thrown into the mix. And I think he thought the same thing, to be honest. You know how we're saying he might be pulling evenly from Trump and unnamed Democratic candidate right now. However, if he was running on the Democratic ticket, he would only be pulling from Trump, and that would be a big problem for us. So
I agree with that. Let's keep on going here. By the way, whenever you want me to stop the clip, I know you're not shy, but let me know. Let a brother know.
Presidential candidate RFK Jr. joins us now. So,
okay, you know what? I appreciate RFK Jr., but can the man smile? Can you just look at that mug for a moment? I am not the most handsome guy in the world,
but at least he still sounds better than Joe Biden. So
calm down.
Let him live.
Calm down. So, I mean, listen. I know he's got an ailment, and that's okay. You know.
He can handle it.
The dude looks like you just stole his puppy from him, and he's glaring at you. Anyways, just my 2 cents.
RFK, you ran the right way. You did what you were supposed to do. You're a Democrat. You primaried a Democrat incumbent, and they wouldn't let you. How did they jam you out of this thing? Because now look at what happened.
Yeah, I think it was a strategic mistake by the Democrats, Jesse, and you and I have talked about this before. But they got rid of they changed the primary rules while we were running the primary. They changed 60 different rules to make it impossible for anybody to challenge Joe Biden. One of the things that you remember that they did to me is I've been campaigning in New Hampshire, so they adopted a rule that said that any political candidate, any Democratic candidate who campaigns in New Hampshire, who steps foot into the state of New Hampshire, that all of their votes would go to the president, all of their delegates would go to the president, instead of going to that. And then they shut down the Florida primary. They shut down a bunch of primaries, just said, we're not running them. We already have our candidate. You know, a few weeks ago, President Biden was ridiculing Vladimir Putin, who won 88% of the vote in Russia. And he said, you know, that was a fixed election, because President Putin had made sure no adversaries could challenge him, and also that he had fixed the press so the press wouldn't cover his adversaries. Well, the Democratic Party succeeded in doing the same thing. I haven't been allowed on any of the Democratic networks, ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, as you know, Fox has allowed me on, although Fox, people like you have allowed me to speak. You debate me. You give me a platform, even though you don't agree with things that I say. And I think that's the way the media is supposed to work.
It certainly is the way the media is supposed to work, but this isn't how media works in America anymore. Are the comparisons to Putin apt in this particular situation?
Oh, man, are they, Gene? Let me ask you a few questions, Gene. Can you imagine?
Listen. If you're going to ask me a few questions here, maybe we should. I want to be able to look you in the eye here. So let's go for it.
So some of these are rhetorical, but let's just go down a brief list here. Putin, right? Let's say Putin. He's been accused in the past of hand selecting the candidates that may run for office in Mother Russia, right? Everyone's heard of this. He picks his opponents, and the rest of them, bad things happen to the ones he doesn't approve of, right? Some of them are bankrupted. Some of them might be imprisoned. Some of them either get killed or attempted to get killed. What does that sound a lot like lately?
Some of them come down with an unfortunate poisoning from some exposure to radioactive material.
Yeah, well, poisoning is the only thing that hasn't happened to Donald Trump. Donald Trump, poisoning is the only thing that hasn't happened to Trump yet. They've changed the rules. They tried to kick the man off the ballot. They kept RFK out of the primary system. They're hand selecting their who they want to run against. They're hand selecting who's going to take Biden's place. They tried to bankrupt Donald Trump. They tried to imprison the man. And then all of a sudden, someone took a shot at him, right? This sounds worse than Putin. We'd have sanctions against us if we weren't us.
That's a hell of a quote right there. I got to work that out. We'd have sanctions against us if we weren't us.
There you go. Put that one in the book.
I'm clipping that one later on. But speaking of the new designee, Kamala Harris was out there making bank after Joe Biden was, we're going to say forced out, because I don't know about you, but that's certainly my opinion about all this.
Gene, it's a coup.
Forced out. It's a palace coup. I think that's the phrase that people have been using. And isn't it amazing how the spigot of donations stopped coming in for Joe Biden. And then all of a sudden, Kamala Harris in 24 hours gets $81 million. I think it's even more than that now. I've heard numbers as high as $230 million. This is from the AP. Kamala Harris is smashing fundraising records as the Democratic Party donors, big and small, open their wallets for the vice president in the immediate aftermath of President Joe Biden's stunning decision to step aside. In total, Harris's team raised more than $81 million. The massive haul includes money raised across the campaign, the DNC, and joint fundraising committees, and it represents the largest 24-hour sum by either side in the 2024 campaign. The historic outpouring of support for Vice President Harris represents exactly the kind of grassroots energy and enthusiasm that wins elections. And if you believe that, ladies and gentlemen, there's this bridge made of stone that spans between Brooklyn and Manhattan that I'll sell you really, really cheap. This is the resumption of the money that was going to go to Joe Biden anyway, and they're making a big deal of it all being sent to Kamala Harris. Would you agree with me in saying that this is kabuki theater?
It's kabuki theater, but it might even be worse. Like, where is this money coming from? I can't wait to see the disclosures. Because think about it, Gene. What do these donors support in Kamala Harris, right? Like, I get the Trump derangement syndrome, right? Anybody but Trump. That I get. $81 million for the 81 million fake votes that Joe Biden got. But what policies, even on Harris's opening remarks when she, basically claimed to be the nominee now, she outlined zero policies, right? She said Trump's a convicted felon. They recycled all these other things that didn't work for Joe Biden, and now she's running on those. But, if we start looking back in her record, she was a fan of outright banning fracking, not giving any leases to drilling anywhere. That's not going to play well in Pennsylvania or the Midwest anywhere, right? She called ICE Nazis when she was running for office the first time.
Yeah.
That's zero votes, right? In that primary.
And by the way, just today, I believe she refused to meet one-on-one with Netanyahu.
While the Democrat voters were out in the streets burning flags and defacing monuments, right? And while they were in the Capitol committing an insurrection.
Absolutely. Okay. I just want to go to this one line here that I think is important. The donor class's embrace comes as she locks up endorsements from the vast majority of Democrat governors and members of Congress. Now she's the presumptive nominee because enough delegates have pledged themselves to her. And to me, this is the most damning indictment of the Democratic Party. It's sort of like a snowball rolling downhill, Ross. You start out with some major endorsements like from Clinton and from other people, other members of Congress, other governors that rolled out in the first couple of hours, which led to the donors thinking that the coast is clear and give the money to Kamala Harris, which then in turn led to more delegates and more endorsements over that 24-hour period, to the point where even the Black Lives Matter account on X was saying, hold on, wait a minute, what about democracy? I never thought I'd be agreeing with a Black Lives Matter post, but here we are. This is 2024 now.
Well, with Kamala, by the way, I wouldn't get too crazy about it just yet, because I truly believe, and I think I said this last week, that they are throwing her into the fire. She is the sacrificial lamb. I don't think there's anybody with two brain cells that can rub together that really believe that Kamala Harris is going to be the next president of the United States. Right? Because if they did, I go back to what I said at the beginning of the show. Why not just let her be president now? Joe Biden clearly is old, clearly is not thinking correctly, clearly can't speak, can't walk, very ill, very fragile. Step aside and let this woman be the president now. But they're not doing that. I think they've resigned themselves to the fact that Donald Trump is going to be president, and that's why they gave it to her, right? The $81 million, kind of crazy. I can't wait to see where this money really came from and who's giving it. But all right, $81 million. What is she going to do? Just say Donald Trump's a convicted felon? Donald Trump is arguably the most famous person on the planet right now.
Well, you remember when she ran in 2020, she was running on her record as being a prosecutor, the prosecutor president. She's literally doing the same thing now that she was doing in 2020 that Tulsi Gabbard torched her on that debate stage before the primary season really started. Back in, I think that debate was in 2019. So she's clearly a one-trick pony. And when you think about that prosecutorial record, SCOTUS called her out for mistreating inmates, I believe it was. She had programs where people who should have been released from prison were kept in for cheap labor. So this is the record that she wants to run on and claim to be the prosecutor president. I think after this whole afterglow that we're seeing of the release of energy from Democrats no longer saddled with Joe Biden, I think there's going to be a moment here where they have this honeymoon period. There's going to be a summertime where people aren't going to really pay attention to politics as much because, honestly, even someone like me right now, I'm in politics overload between what happened the past 2 weekends and what's been going on in Congress in the aftermath of a lot of that, which we'll talk about later in the show. And I think that when we resume this and we start seeing the rubber meet the road and you start seeing Trump versus Harris on the same stage, people are not going to like what they see in Kamala Harris. The thing about Kamala Harris is she is just tragically unlikable once you get to know her. The more you know her, the more you dislike her.
And two quick notes on this. One is I still stand by that. I think Joe Biden should step aside and let her be president now, but I think it's inevitable. Joe Biden will not finish this term. If you got a chance to watch him tonight, the guy's a disaster. Like he will, I don't wish ill will on anyone, but as far as their health, like I do hope terrible things happen to the man just in general, but not his health. Like that's for real. But I don't think he's going to make it. I just don't think he's going to make it to the finish line. She will be the president. The second thing is the delicious irony of all this, Gene, is she's so unlikable. And that party is so obsessed with race and gender and ethnicity and everything else that they're on the hunt for her VP. And the only ones in contention are white dudes, most likely from the Midwest. I love it. Why? Why are they're going to put her in that Barack Obama situation again? She's not qualified. She's a functional illiterate. She failed a bar exam, by the way. No offense to the lawyers out there who didn't make it on the first crack, but she failed her bar exam. So she's not this ingenious prosecutor. She didn't even pass the bar on the first crack. And now they're looking for a white guy. By the way, she's married to a white guy. She has no kids of her own. Her kids are all white. She's not black. She's half Jamaican and half Indian, Asian, basically. So, it's a train wreck, bro. The more people get to know her, the poll numbers didn't even get that big of a bounce, to be honest. I think there was like one or two polls that had her a point ahead somehow.
That Reuters Ipsos poll that polled 46% Democrats in a sample size of and the total sample size was 1,000 people for a national poll. And the margin of error was 3% and it was within 2%. Little tip to everybody out there, national polls don't mean shit when you're running 50 different statewide elections for president of the United States. Every state is different. That's why only 6 to 8 states a year matter in these cycles.
Yep, and I'm not going to be one of these guys to say polls don't matter, but I agree with you. Like, first of all, Trump outperforms polls. A Republican candidate could be behind in the general election national poll and still win as long as he's within reason, right? Because they come out heavy in California and New York. Who cares? It doesn't really matter in those places. Trump outperforms the polls, and he's in the real clear politics average, even with the polls after the assassination attempt, after Joe Biden announced he's not running again. He's still competitive or ahead in most of them.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, I got to do my thing that I used to do all the time. We're halftime here on the show, so I want to say to everybody, hey, thanks for checking out Behind Enemy Lines. I'm Gene, he's Ross, and since you're online, because we know you're online, because we're on so many different platforms right now, check us out on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, subscribe on Rumble, follow on the Twitters and all that. You can check out shop.buffoonoftheweek.com for any merch like this beautiful People's Republic of New York City glass that I've been drinking from throughout the whole show. There's also some less government, more fun stuff that you can pick up as well. I'm a walking billboard tonight, Ross. And I just wanted to say, everybody, I'm glad that you're out there. And I also wanted to give a shout out to everybody who checked out the replays of our debut show. You guys are amazing. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Ross only half appreciates it. He wants you people off his lawn. Let's be honest.
And Gene's got us on a dry show now. We used to drink a lot more during these shows.
Whoa, I'll tell you what. I'll make you a deal. once we start building up an audience, and one of the things we're going to start doing is we're going to start accepting super chats and super stickers and all that on YouTube and different donations to a joint liquor fund, by the way. Once we start getting that, we'll start toasting the audience, and the show doesn't have to be dry. I'm all for it.
All right, then I'm in.
But we got to grow the audience. You got to help me grow the audience, though, all right? By the way, that I didn't have the banner up. Why didn't you tell me I didn't have the banner up? What is wrong with you?
That's what we're still working out the kinks
here.
here.
You slipping. I'm slipping. Anyway. We were talking about this a little bit earlier. Trump versus Harris. If you were on a debate stage with Kamala Harris, what are your vectors of attack?
I think I would just walk off the stage after saying, ladies and gentlemen, my opponent is the border czar for the last 3.5 years. That's it. It's over. She is the sacrificial lamb. Does anyone on that side think that they... Again, I don't know if you heard the speech earlier today, but Joe Biden claimed tonight that border crossings are lower today than they were when he took office. Right? Like, that is insanity. That is 1984 rewriting history in real time right in front of your eyes, right? Like, that is not true.
Yeah.
If you live in New York, you know damn sure that ain't true.
Tell that to people in the People's Republic of New York City. Tell that to people in Chicago. Tell it to people in Denver. I love how this administration, and Kamala Harris is now the poster child for this administration. I love how this administration goes out there and tells people what to think and not to believe their own reality.
Yeah.
Inflation's under control, everybody. Check your wallets, folks. How does that feel to you? The economy's the best in the world. How does that feel to you? The border's fine. Do you think the border's fine after what you've been seeing for the past 3 years? I don't think so.
My question to you is, what would my attack be on the debate stage? Well, I want to ask you, how you see the way they're couching this. Joe Biden was the greatest single-term president ever, and they're all like happy for him and they love him, including Kamala, right? But how does she distance herself from this disastrous administration, right? All the things you just mentioned. So what do you think she's going to do when she gets up there? I'm curious. How do you distance yourself while still bowing at the altar of Joe Biden?
Well, she has to. She's looking forward, unburdened by what's behind her. That's how it's going to be handled. Just keep repeating and just rinse and repeat. The one thing I noticed about Kamala Harris in observing, especially her debate performances in the previous election cycle, Kamala Harris does not like to be put on the back foot. She does not like to be challenged with inconvenient facts, much like the way Tulsi Gabbard did. She had no response to Tulsi Gabbard going after her record. Donald Trump is the king of offense. I'm going to bring up the Ross Galloway tennis ball machine theory of politics. The left likes to hit so many different things back over the net at you that you only swing back at one or two of them at a time. Donald Trump can actually overwhelm her with different points, put her on the back foot, and her thinking on her feet, her ability to think on her feet, at least we saw in 2020, not so good. And even when she doesn't have to think on her feet in a high pressure situation, you get the uncomfortable laughter, you get the word salads as she's trying to gather her thoughts. I think that if you put pressure on Kamala Harris with credible attacks, like the border czar thing, I think that she will not be able to think on her feet beyond a simple retort. What do you think?
I agree with you. And, I love Donald Trump. Love me some Donald Trump, right? And he is great on offense, but he's not great at, like, spitting out factoids with real numbers and drilling down. Like, I know he knows what he's talking about, but, to say, like, the border's a mess. Okay, great. But if he can, like, memorize a few numbers and go in there and throw it right in her face, right? Or some of the things she's actually said and say them back verbatim to her, like Tulsi Gabbard was able to do. That was brilliant. It destroyed her.
Or one thing that he can do is point to his successes at the border, like the Remain in Mexico policy and things like that. Things that the Biden administration took away early on, but then returned to a couple of years later.
But he doesn't like to state numbers. Like he speaks almost in platitudes where he'll say, the border was the most secure in 40 years. Okay, great. but like give us a number. At the unfortunately, when he almost died, when he was giving that speech, there was a chart with real numbers that he was looking at, right? Commit some
That
of
chart
those
saved his
factoids.
life.
It saved his life, thank God. But commit some of that to memory. Throw real numbers out there. Not too deep into the weeds where you put everyone to sleep. But this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, is a disaster. There are real numbers, right? 9% inflation. When you compound that from the beginning of his presidency, it's really like 25%. CPI doesn't even measure half the stuff that is driving it up, right? So if you really want to get crazy, it's more than 25%. So Trump needs to start spitting numbers out like that. Not just inflation's out of control and we're going to bankrupt. Like, I get it. I love Donald Trump. That sort of works in the primaries. It definitely works at the rallies when you're talking to guys like me, right? Because I'm watching TV. I know what's going on. But if like Joe Scarborough said that the majority of their own party doesn't even know what DEI stands for, then you got to break it down Barney style to these people that are not paying attention to politics every day like you are.
I absolutely agree. Let's move away from the election news. I want to focus on, we talked briefly about Donald Trump and the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. There's been a lot of news coming out of that, and I want to explore a little bit of that. The Secret Service Director, Kimberly Cheadle, resigned, I think it was yesterday, as we taped this show live, and it was 9 days too late, in my opinion, because she owns the sheer incompetence that we're seeing coming out in drips and drabs now as different reports and different congressional hearings are happening and more information is gleaned from those hearings. This has turned into an absolute shit show. I want to focus on a couple of different videos. The first one is, and I want to get your reaction to this, given your military background, Ross. There's a video that's circulating from Congressman Eli Crane of Arizona. Now, for those of you who don't know, Congressman Crane, in a former life, was a Navy SEAL sniper. So he actually went to the site of the attempted assassination, and these are his observations from on site. I think this is really telling, at least about the Secret Service Director's initial reaction and how Crane was so easily able to debunk everything that she was saying.
Here on the building where the supposed sniper took his shot. It's not that steep at all. We just had a 70-year-old man back here climb up on the roof easily. See that water tower behind me? Had Secret Service or anybody had sniper teams up there, this guy wouldn't have made it 5 feet up this roof. He would have been taken out. Behind me, you see the windows that Secret Service was supposedly in the second floor of this building behind. Makes you wonder why they weren't able to quickly dispatch the individual. And then behind me, back over here where those red roofs are, that's where the stage was set up. That's where the president was giving his speech from. A lot of questions here in Butler, but we look forward to doing oversight and getting to the bottom of it and making sure it never happens again.
So, first, brag on your own background in security from being in the military, and talk about your own bona fide credentials, and then go into reacting to what Eli Crane was saying there.
No, listen, I appreciate the opportunity to brag. I'm not going to take the bait necessarily. I do have a background in military law enforcement, but I like what a lot of other people said, including Congressman Crane, that it doesn't even take a rocket scientist or a special forces dude to see a line of sight, 150-yard target. Like, these are all. I know people in New York don't. Most people don't shoot guns unless you live upstate. But with a rifle, even if you're not really good, 150-yard shot is not a difficult shot, right? So clearly they dropped the ball. This administration, Gene, and we touched on it last week a lot, was this administration has no accountability. The buck does not stop anywhere in this administration, right? Cheadle resigned too late in everyone's opinion. She was not fired. I can't think of a single person that was fired by this president for anything, right? Remember when the Secretary of Defense went MIA for a week? No one even knew he was gone, right? Like, he wasn't fired. Nothing happened. If a soldier did that or a junior officer, they would be relieved of command, right? But this Secretary of Defense, nothing happened to him. Mayorkas, Department of Homeland Security, Secretary, disaster. Nothing happens to them. No one gets fired. right? Where are the
No one
daily
gets-
press briefings, Gene, on this? Right? We get little tidbits of information. When there's like a school shooting or something, you get daily press briefings by local police or the FBI. We are not getting daily press briefings. So now what does that lead you into? Conspiracy theory land. And I know people think guys
Here on
like
the
me are crazy.
building.
First of all, I said this last week, and I want to make sure that this is clear. Do I think that the government tried to kill Donald Trump? I'll be honest, I don't know, right? But I don't think they did necessarily. I hope they didn't, right? But you can't blame people for thinking that. I'm just going to run through a quick list, and I'll shut up.
Yeah, go ahead.
What has this government told us over the last few years, right? That Russia collusion story, the Steele dossier, fake. The Ukraine quid pro quo phone call that Donald Trump made that he got impeached for, the second impeachment, fake. January 6th was an insurrection to overthrow the United States government, fake. COVID vaccines, if you get the vaccine, you won't get the illness, clearly fake. Joe Biden has like 4 boosters and just got COVID last week. Joe Biden started off his presidency speaking to us from a fake White House set across the street from the real White House, fake. Misinformation, disinformation, cheap fakes, a letter to drop out of the presidential race with an electronic signature, no video, no picture from the president for days. And we are to believe everything the government is telling us? Like, I believe conspiracy theorists first now.
There is a crisis of faith when it comes to what the government says, and rightly so, based upon many of the examples that you talked about. And I'll even say that the media fosters that information. It's like many people in government lie, and then the media swears by it, unless it's coming from a Republican. I just want to update some information from Eli Crane's video. That window that he was talking about, where he said that Secret Service were stationed, it turns out, based upon testimony received today from a Pennsylvania State police officer before a House committee, that window wasn't manned by Secret Service. The building, the AGR building that he's standing on, was assigned by Secret Service to Butler Emergency Services Unit, basically the equivalent of their SWAT for their county, the special, very specialized unit. Apparently, the 2 officers that were stationed there couldn't find the shooter out in the crowd, and when they couldn't find him, they actually went to go look for him out in the field, and that's when the shooter got up on the roof, when they left that post. And apparently there was so many snafus with communication. Secret Service uses encrypted communication for their own radio chatter and didn't share that with either the Butler ESU or Pennsylvania State Police, to the point where the command center had to have different representatives there to relay different things. So when Pennsylvania State Police is reporting and sending photos out of the shooter, and he has the rangefinder and they say he's suspicious, that is only getting to Secret Service via whoever's in the command center verbally saying it to whoever he's trying to get the attention of at the time. And to me, the federal government, when it comes to interactions with state police, there's always an arrogance there, no matter what level of federal government you're talking about, in dealing with a local officer. So I don't know if they didn't take it seriously, but what I do know is that this director of the Secret Service, her reaction to what happened here was clearly not serious. She only started contacting people in the field about what happened for an after-action review 72 hours after the incident. There was radio silence from the director of Secret Service and the field officers immediately after what happened to President Trump. She didn't visit the field. She didn't go to the area before she went to go testify to Congress. She hadn't been out for a site visit for that in order to inform her of the after-action review and whatever investigation was going on. So when you put it all together, she was clearly and rightfully shit-canned here. And let's be clear, the threat of impeachment from Nancy Mace because of her inaction to resign and the Biden administration's inaction to fire, as you rightly put it, is what caused her to resign. That threat of impeachment and removal from office, in my opinion.
And she's just the top of the food chain, right? Trump and a lot of people in think tanks that are feeding Trump, clans, if you will, know that the top guys, the political appointees, obviously they all have to go, God willing, when Trump wins this year. but it's multiple layers down, right? Do you think anything at the Secret Service really changed with the director going? No, right? Think about all the things you just mentioned, Gene, right? Post 9/11, a lot of the things they identified prior to 9/11 happening was what you said about federal agencies specifically not talking to each other and not interacting with their state and local counterparts. They were all in silos, right? So they created joint task forces and fusion centers to share information. The day of this incident, the attempted assassination of President Trump, the day of, this shooter was flying drones a couple of hours before the shooting over the site that somehow were not detected, shot down, jammed, right?
Christopher Wray testified today that the drone that was flying around by the shooter was left alone to fly around for up to 11 minutes. Now, the drone wasn't flown over the rally site itself in the protected area of the rally site. It was being flown around the perimeter of it and looking at these rooftops. 11 minutes of a drone flying around an area where a former president and the Republican nominee is going to be out in the field in front of God and everyone.
If you were in the Capitol, if you were in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, they were tracking your cell phone data to figure out if you were there and years later come and knock on your door, right? Don't tell me the government couldn't check something. This kid found the perfect vantage point. I'm not saying he knew it would be unguarded or you know, that he'd have access to it, but somehow he picked that right place. This was after the Secret Service was made known of a threat from Iran that they were planning on trying to assassinate. So this was their upgrade package, and this is what it looked like, right? There were explosives in his van. Why are we not getting a briefing? The guy has a minimal online footprint. Where are the who helped him build explosives? A 20-year-old kid built an IED. And then lastly, Gene, the day of, just coming back full circle, the day of that attempted assassination, going back to the silos and the not sharing information, the Secret Service did not attend the morning deconfliction briefing with the state and local counterparts. That would have deconflicted what you're talking about with encrypted communication and streamlining information. Here's a free text, an unencrypted channel. If there's an emergency, most operations have that where you just speak plain speak. Hey, shut it down. There's a guy on the roof. Something to get information out quickly. No codes, plain speak on an open channel, right? They didn't have any of that. Why? Why didn't they have any of that? The only answer is, other than conspiracy land, is that the agency itself, like a lot of federal agencies right now, do not have their priorities straight. They're focused on DEI and getting 30% female agents, right? They're not focused on training and doing tabletop exercises and doing walkthroughs and drills and getting there early and doing site sketches and having agents on a roof that's not that sloped or the water tower behind it, right? They're not focused on any of that. Why? Because the culture of the organization is destroyed. You need to go several layers deep and start over with the FBI, the CIA, now the Secret Service. The ATF should just be disbanded whole cloth, right? This is what we have to do.
I tend to agree, especially in the face of this utter and complete failure by the federal apparatus at this point. You know,
don't leave this topic yet. One more thing. She was asked by Congress, I forgot who asked her this. They said, well, what if he was actually killed? Would you resign? And she wouldn't commit to that. Their mission is to safeguard their protectees. If that's
believe
the
it or not,
and
believe it or not, I have that clip if you want to see it.
Yeah, I think it's worth watching.
And
it's Mr. Moskowitz from Florida.
It was from Jared Moskowitz, a Democrat from Florida, that did this. It takes a little bit to get to this clip, so I'm going to try to skip around to get to it. Give me 1 second here. Bear with me as I do the technical stuff, guys.
Here's my question. You said there's going to be accountability. I understand you don't want to give us names. When you say that, are you telling the committee that once it's concluded, you're prepared to fire the people on the ground who made poor decisions that day?
I'm prepared to take the actions necessary.
No, that's nonsense. Okay. Accountability. The failure was human. That doesn't mean they're bad people. It means they failed that day. and a former president was almost assassinated. Okay? Are you prepared to fire the human failure on the ground? Yes or no? When you have the names of where those failures were, they're people. It's not like a piece of technology failed. It was people who failed that day. Are you prepared to fire them?
I don't have an answer as to whether.
Well, then how can there be accountability if you're not prepared to fire someone? And the reason why your name is going to be the person who's held accountable, the reason why members in this committee are calling for resignation, and I join in that, or for the president to fire you, is because you're saying there's going to be accountability, but you can't commit that people are going to get fired. Let me ask this question a different way. If Trump had been assassinated that day, if the gunman had succeeded, okay, would you have come and tendered your resignation?
I would still be sitting here because I would want to ensure the integrity of the investigation.
Totally understand. That's a fair answer, that you would have set up that process. But would you have had the honor to come in front of the committee and say, a former president was assassinated on my watch, there should be new leadership?
I think that I have admitted that there was
No, that's what I'm asking. Would you have tendered your resignation if he had been killed?
That occurred on my watch, and I am accountable for that.
Okay, but would you have tendered your resignation if he had been killed?
I think that I've admitted that I've taken accountability and will take responsibility.
Damn. 3 different ways he asked it, and she wouldn't commit to it. Now, she resigned the next day, or that night, I think it was. But is that pride, or is that arrogance, or we're on a channel called Buffoon of the Week? Is that buffoonery?
It's the liberal mindset, Gene. Like, just saying I'm taking accountability is good enough for them, right? It doesn't mean anything. What does it mean? You take accountability. Okay, cool. Like, then fall on the sword, dude. Like, you had one job. The Secret Service, you could say, like, yeah, they investigate, counterfeit money and stuff. Nobody cares about that. You have one job. And if you wouldn't resign, if one of your protectees were killed, then what are we doing here? What's the point? We don't need you. Right? The agency, how could they do worse without her? Let's say that the slot was vacant. How could that agency do any worse? How could that department do any worse?
I don't think they can. The only thing that would have been worse is if Trump would have succumbed to his injuries. That would be the only thing that would have been worse.
I'm using it in that example. She couldn't even commit to resigning if he had been killed. So, like,
which is crazy.
Do worse than that?
Which is absolutely, cuckoo bananas here.
Yeah.
How could you not? I mean, really? It's absolutely disgusting. But you know what? Listen, I don't want to end the show on a downer. It's not in me to do it that way. I need, like I said, we're on a channel called Buffoon of the Week. Let's get some happy news for people. So we already know that Jamal Bowman, he lost his primary in the People's Republic of New York. It looks like Cory Bush in Missouri in the St. Louis area is looking to do the same. But we found a story on a site called wokespy.com. A great site, by the way. Check it out. I actually contribute some articles to it every now and again. I couldn't believe this, and I had to bring it up. And maybe I'll do a video on it late, for Friday or something. Cory Bush campaign duped by Chief Rabbi of Gaza parody account. Let's get into this story right now. Democratic Socialist House Representative Cory Bush has been fooled by a parody account claiming to be the Chief Rabbi of Gaza, as if such a position could possibly exist in a pseudo-state whose ruling terrorists openly call for Jewish unaliving. The X account, under the name Rabbi Linda Goldstein, regularly uploads anti-Israel posts to dupe pro-Palestinian progressives, claiming to stand with Iran next to its support for transgender rights because the two go together like peanut butter and jelly. The account features thousands of satire posts, including one claim that Hamas built its 300-mile tunnel network to aid social distancing during the pandemic. More recently, the account connected with the engagement director for Cory Bush's campaign, who is renowned for her pro-Palestinian and anti-American viewpoints. And here is where communications were between Rabbi Linda Goldstein and Ronika Moody. This is from the campaign to the parody account. Hey, the goal is usually based on the host and how much they believe they can raise from their community. So now, Rabbi Linda Goldstein said, hey, let's do a fundraiser in Gaza for Cori Bush. Once you've gauged interest, please let me know. Can you let me know by end of day Monday and the date and times you would like a fundraiser? What's your time zone? I also wanted to let you know Cori is interested in hosting in Gaza, and it's something she's been trying to plan. Only a buffoon would think to go to a war zone and bilk the money out of that area. Unfortunately, we've not been successful with that opportunity as of yet. Yay, you think? Oh, this is great. So now, check this out. This is this is a post from John Levine. Cori Bush's campaign has been in contact with real Rabbi Linda about a possible fundraiser, and just that picture, just oh my God, Zionism and white supremacy, a campaign fundraiser discussion. I love this. And let me just get. There's one part here I have to find. Hang on. Yes, competition for the Babylon Bee continues to sharpen among America's Democrat politicians. Some of the reaction to this was great. Speaking to the New York Post, the man behind the Linda Goldstein account labeled Bush an empty suit you see the word there. He added that the left-wing Democrat was completely clueless about the conflict between Israel and Palestine, but eager to speak up because it gives her cover to publicly hate Jewish people. The account also said the topic of the fundraiser would be a final solution to the problem of Zionism, echoing some points from the big bad evil guys from WW2. I got nothing. I got absolutely nothing.
I would love for Cori Bush to tell us what she thinks Zionism actually means. By the way, Gene, I do have to say the squad, speaking of the squad, publicly, again, I have to admit you were right. You called Bowman going down in flames, and I did not think he would lose.
Yeah, you didn't want to watch that debate that we did a live stream on when we were testing out the equipment. And yeah, I'm going to live that I told you so for at least another month.
And just as the chief rabbi of Gaza Emeritus, I would like to renew the invitation to any Democrat or member of the squad that would like to hold any event in Gaza. I will help finance your trip there.
One-way tickets only, though. Well, listen, I think Cori Bush is actually way behind in the polls in her own primary. So we may see a second squad member actually get the boot. Okay, actually, you know what? I stand corrected. I'm looking at a USA Today article now, and I'm going to see if I can post this on the screen here. Give me 1 second.
We don't want them to lose, though, Gene, while you're pulling that up. Having them around is the best thing that's happened to us in a while.
I kind of want Cori Bush to lose only because A, I don't like her, and B, it'll keep her voters home for the general election.
Yeah. That's like, I love AOC. I love when she comes on TV.
Okay, so I'm going to share this article right here. No, I don't want to subscribe USA Today. Will Cori Bush be ousted like Bowman? New poll shows her opponent leading by 1 point. This is from the end of June. Get all the pop-ups out of the way. Come on, guys. What are you doing to me here? See, that's why I hate USA Today. I got to start over here. Cori Bush may be in trouble after a new poll. Jesus. Okay. The poll conducted by the Melman Group between June 18th and June 22nd found that St. Louis County prosecuting attorney Wesley Bell, who was running a primary against her, overcame a double-digit deficit in January to lead Bush by 1 point. 40% of the survey respondents supported other candidates. 4% supported other candidates on the ballot, while 11% were undecided. That's a horse race right there, Ross.
I hope she wins, to be honest. Because what good is it, Gene? They get a moderate Democrat. What is a moderate Democrat? Tell me where a moderate Democrat's views are any different than a squad member. I'll wait.
It's still the same vote for the same policy initiatives coming from the White House. I agree with that. But if we're looking at a general election, and I don't think Missouri is in play in any way, shape, or form, I would still love to see that. I want to see her go down in flames. I just want to see.
I mean, listen, I understand. I dislike those people, and I like when they lose. It's funny. But look what happened to us, right? When you have the I don't want to call them far right because I think that's like a misnomer. But when you have people on the Freedom Caucus or in the Matt Gaetz crew and you have a slim majority, those people, even though I agree with them most times, cause problems in a slim majority. So God forbid, like the Democrats are only slightly below majority, or God forbid, get the majority in the House. Having some far left wingers in their caucus, I think benefits us, right? Because then they get stymied down when the AOCs and the other part of the crew demand stuff. Republicans are just dumb. Like, we never give our base any red meat when we have power. The left usually does, so it is kind of dangerous to have them around. But I don't know. For the comedic value alone, I kind of like having the squad around.
I hear that, and I get it, and they do provide good content. Content is everything for this channel.
I mean, she fell for the chief rabbi of Gaza. Like, that is, you're not going to get that with her if she loses.
That's true. All right, you know what? It's time. We're gonna wrap this puppy up. Final thoughts, y'all. You want me to go first, or you want to go first?
I'll go first.
All right.
I would keep this under wraps. We got to keep this a secret. But here's my master plan if we win, right? This is what I would do. If I was in charge for a little while, here's what I would do. If we somehow win the presidency and both houses of Congress, what I would do is I would end the filibuster in the Senate. I know that sounds crazy. I would pack the Supreme Court with more than 9 justices, and I would propose breaking Texas into about 2 or 3 states, and it'd still be larger than most states in the United States, getting them 2 senators each. Why does that sound crazy? It shouldn't, because that was the Democrats' plan if things went their way the last time. Call their fucking bluff and do it to them. Fuck them. We're going to wait for the filibuster to go on their watch when it benefits them? No. Get rid of the filibuster, pack the court, break Texas up into 3 states, gain 4 more senators, and let's have a perpetual majority like they were trying to do to us. That should be the plan. Don't tell anybody, but that should be the plan.
I mean, I've heard of more kooky plans than that. This ain't happening, obviously, but okay. My final thought, real quick, guys, my Democrat friends out there, or to anybody out there who's watching the show who has a Democrat relative, you should have read the fucking book, okay? You wouldn't be in this situation if you would have been more discerning about all the candidates that you had to choose from out there. But you know what? On second thought, it's not your fault, because the DNC rigged the primary process. They did it back in 2016 with Bernie Sanders and the superdelegates. Bernie Sanders was winning 40% of the delegates earned through primaries and only 3% through the superdelegate process. Superdelegates were picking Hillary Clinton back in 2016 before any vote was cast. And they did it again this cycle. They did it by changing the rules like RFK Jr. was talking about, making sure that if you set foot in Iowa and New Hampshire, your delegates went to Joe Biden. Can you imagine anything more undemocratic than that? You go and campaign, but your votes and your percentage and your delegates go to the other guy. Democrats keep talking about this election and how Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. The only threat to democracy is coming from Democrats rigging elections. It's coming from Democrats transferring tens of millions of dollars from one candidate to another. It comes from Democrats creating a designee over their nominee. 14 million people got duped again because they thought that their vote mattered in the Democratic Party. That's my final thought on the whole thing. And I'm ready to shut this sucker down. I feel like I'm going to end on a high note here.
I love it, Gene. You got to throw in the word duped.
You got duped. You got hoodwinked, bamboozled, run amok. Per usual. All right, you know what? I'm in such a good mood right now that I know we're ending the show. We're going to shut this thing down, Ross, and as soon as you say so. But I got called out for last week's show for not having an ending stinger for the show. People actually said that I'm rusty, I'm out of it. So I got a little something for the end of the show. You guys hear the countdown music to the show and all that. We got an anthem here on Behind Enemy Lines that we're going to be debuting here at the end of the show. It's got the lyrics for you to sing along to. And all I got to say is if this shit don't get you pumped, you're not a Republican. I'm saying it. I'm putting it out there right now. If this doesn't get you going and pumped for going forward in this election season and beyond, or even just for the next show, you're not a Republican. That's it. I'm calling you out.
Fuck yeah, Gene, let's get to it. Shut this motherfucker down and let's see
We're
it.
shutting this down. Ladies and gentlemen, we are Behind Enemy Lines, live from the People's Republic of New York and wherever undisclosed location Ross is at. Thanks for tuning in. We really appreciate all of you, and we are out of here. Play my fucking song.
Don't let them have sway. Conservative battalions walking them out, marching through the streets while the buffoons all shout. Move in the shadows, flag on my chest, repping my clan, putting faith to the test. Cause we'll play blues behind enemy lines, fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rocking and roll. Cool in the chaos, but loud in the war. But loud in the war. Thunder, arm in advance, march to the anthem, this is our chance. If I ever stand with a smirk and a gaze, holding down the fort in this Democrat cage. Whispers in the dark, strategies unfold, allies unseen, but bonds remain bold. Committed to the cause in the heart of the storms, in the name of freedom we're breaking the norm. Cause let's stay blues behind enemy lines, fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rugged and raw. Cool in the chaos, but loud in this war. But loud in this war. Let's take blues behind enemy lines, fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down.